The moving truck was pulling away from the house when Brielle came outside with her arms crossed. I was standing on the sidewalk with my 2 suitcases, watching 30 years of memories disappear into a metal container. My son Marcus had been gone for only 2 weeks, and here I was, homeless at 63 years old. "Don't even think about coming back here, Dorothy," Brielle said, her voice cold as ice. "You're not welcome here anymore. Go die in a dumpster for all I care." I turned around to face her, this woman my son had loved so much. She was standing in the doorway of the house that Marcus and I had built together when he was just starting his tech company. The same house where we'd celebrated his first million, his wedding to Brielle, and where he'd taken his last breath just 14 days ago. "Brielle, please," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "This is my home too. Marcus is dead," she screamed, loud enough for the whole neighborhood to hear. "And he left everything to me. The house, the company, all $55 million. You get nothing, old woman. Nothing." She slammed the door so hard that the wreath I'd made for Marcus's funeral fell to the ground. I picked it up with shaking hands and held it against my chest. The roses were already wilting, just like my heart. My neighbor Keisha came running over from across the street. She'd been watching the whole thing from her window, probably shocked by what she was seeing. Keisha had known Marcus since he was a little boy riding his bike in circles on our driveway. "Dorothy, honey, what's happening?" she asked, putting her arm around my shoulders. "Where are you going to go?" I couldn't answer her. I was still trying to understand how everything had changed so fast. Just 2 weeks ago, I was taking care of my dying son, holding his hand in the hospital, promising him I'd look after Brielle when he was gone. Now she was throwing me out like garbage. "She says Marcus left her everything," I whispered to Keisha. "The lawyer read the will yesterday. The house, the business, all the money. Everything goes to her." Keisha's eyes went wide. "But you've lived here for 30 years. You helped Marcus build that company from nothing." "Apparently that doesn't matter now," I said, wiping tears from my eyes. "She wants me gone, and legally, she has the right to kick me out." The truth was, I'd never thought about what would happen if Marcus died before me. He was only 35 years old and healthy as a horse, until the cancer came out of nowhere 6 months ago. We'd been so focused on fighting the disease that we never talked about wills or inheritance or any of that stuff. Keisha helped me load my suitcases into her car. "You're staying with us tonight," she said firmly, "and we'll figure out what to do tomorrow." As we drove away, I looked back at the house one more time. Brielle was standing at the window, watching us leave. She didn't look sad or sorry. She looked satisfied, like she'd been waiting for this moment. That night, lying on Keisha's couch, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the last conversation I'd had with Marcus in the hospital. He was so weak, he could barely speak, but he'd grabbed my hand tight and said something that didn't make sense at the time. "Mom," he'd whispered, "make sure you listen carefully to everything the lawyer says, every single word." I thought he was just confused from the medication. The doctors had him on so many painkillers that he was saying strange things all week. But now, lying in the dark, those words kept echoing in my head. "Make sure you listen carefully to everything the lawyer says." The next morning, I called the lawyer's office, Mr. Harrison had been Marcus's attorney for years, handling all his business deals and contracts. His secretary said he could see me that afternoon. "Mrs. Washington," Mr. Harrison said when I walked into his office, "I'm so sorry for your loss. Marcus was a good man." "Thank you," I said, sitting down across from his desk. "I wanted to ask you about the will. Brielle says Marcus left her everything. Is that true?" Mr. Harrison looked at me with a strange expression. "Well, that's interesting that she would say that. Tell me, Mrs. Washington, when I read the will at your son's house yesterday, did you listen to every word?" "I tried to," I said, "but I was so upset. Brielle was crying, and I was crying, and it was all just too much. I heard the important parts about the house and the money going to her." Mr. Harrison leaned back in his chair and smiled. Not a happy smile, but the kind of smile someone gets when they know a secret. "Mrs. Washington," he said slowly, "I think you need to hear that will again. Every single word of it." He pulled out a thick folder and opened it to a document that was several pages long. "Your son was very specific about his wishes. Very very specific." My heart started beating faster. "What do you mean?" "Well, let's start with the house," Mr. Harrison said, adjusting his glasses. "The will states that Brielle inherits the house, yes, but there's a condition." "What kind of condition?" "She only inherits it if she allows you to live there for the rest of your life. If she kicks you out or forces you to leave for any reason, the house automatically goes to you instead." I felt like someone had just punched me in the stomach. "What?" "And the $55 million? Mr. Harrison continued, flipping to another page. "Same condition applies. She gets the money only if she treats you with respect and allows you to stay in your home. If she mistreats you or throws you out, every penny goes to you." I couldn't breathe. "Are you saying—" "I'm saying that by kicking you out yesterday, your daughter-in-law just lost everything. The house is now yours. The money is now yours. All of it." Mr. Harrison reached for his phone. "I think we should call Mrs. Brielle and let her know about her mistake, don't you? Comment below, as I'd love to hear your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel to help us hit that big 5,000 subscriber milestone. And we're so close, and every single one counts. It's free for you, but it means everything to this channel. And hey, while you're at it, I've left a video and also a link to a playlist on the final screen that I promise will surprise you. Seriously, don't miss them. Thanks so much for watching all the way through. Now go hit that button and be part of the journey. Let me start from the beginning, because this story is about more than just money and houses. It's about how greed can make people do terrible things, and how sometimes the truth has a way of coming out when you least expect it. My name is Dorothy Washington, and I'm 63 years old. I've lived in the same house in Atlanta for 30 years, ever since my husband Robert died and left me with a 10-year-old son named Marcus. That house wasn't just a place to live. It was where Marcus grew up, where he learned to ride his bike, where he brought his first girlfriend to meet me, and where he started the tech company that would make him millions. Marcus was the kind of son every mother dreams of having. He was smart, kind, and never forgot where he came from. Even when his company, TechFlow Solutions, started making serious money, He still came home for Sunday dinner every week. He still called me every morning to check on me. He still treated me like the most important person in his world. When Marcus was 28, he met Brielle at a business conference in Miami. She was working for a marketing company, and she was beautiful, confident, and ambitious. Marcus fell head over heels for her immediately. He called me the night he met her and said, "Mom, I think I just met the woman I'm going to marry." They dated for 3 years before getting engaged. And I have to admit, at first I really liked Brielle. She was smart and funny, and she seemed to make Marcus happy. She would come to our Sunday dinners and help me in the kitchen. She would bring me flowers on my birthday and call me Mom Dorothy in this sweet way that made me feel like she really wanted to be part of our family. But looking back now, I wonder if it was all an act. Maybe she was just being nice because she knew Marcus was going to be worth a lot of money someday. Maybe she was playing the long game from the very beginning. They got married 4 years ago in a beautiful ceremony at the Biltmore Hotel. I remember dancing with Marcus at the reception and him telling me how happy he was, how he'd found his soulmate. Brielle looked stunning in her white dress, smiling and laughing with all the guests. If someone had told me that night that she would someday tell me to go die in a dumpster, I would have called them crazy. The first few years of their marriage seemed perfect. Marcus's company kept growing bigger and bigger. He invented some kind of software that helped other companies manage their data, and suddenly everyone wanted to buy it. The money started pouring in faster than any of us could believe. Marcus bought a bigger house, but he insisted that I come live with them. "Mom, you raised me by yourself after Dad died," he said. "The least I can do is take care of you now." So we all moved into this gorgeous house in Buckhead with 6 bedrooms, a pool, and a garden that I absolutely loved. Brielle seemed happy with the arrangement at first. She would joke about having a built-in babysitter for when they had kids someday. She would ask me to teach her my secret recipe for cornbread. She would even ask my advice about redecorating rooms in the house. But I started noticing little changes after they'd been married for about 2 years. Brielle would get annoyed when Marcus and I talked about old memories. She would roll her eyes when I told stories about Marcus as a kid. She started making comments about how I was too involved in their lives. "Marcus, don't you think your mom should get her own place?" I heard her say one night when they thought I was asleep. "We're not newlyweds anymore. We need our privacy." "Mom's not going anywhere," Marcus said firmly. "This is her home too. Besides, she helps us so much around here. Why would we want her to leave?" I could hear the frustration in Brielle's voice when she said, "Fine, but she needs to understand that I'm your wife now. I come first." Things got worse when Marcus got diagnosed with pancreatic cancer 6 months ago. The doctors said it was aggressive and had already spread by the time they found it. Marcus was devastated, but he tried to stay positive for all of us. "I'm going to beat this thing," he told me and Brielle at the hospital. "I've got too much to live for." I moved into full-time caregiver mode. I drove Marcus to all his doctor appointments, sat with him during chemotherapy sessions, and made sure he was eating even when the treatments made him feel sick. Brielle would come to some of the appointments, but she always seemed distracted, checking her phone or talking about work stuff. "Dorothy, you don't have to do everything for him," she would say. We can hire nurses. But I didn't want nurses. I wanted to take care of my son myself. This was my baby, the little boy I'd raised alone after his father died. If he was going to fight this disease, I was going to fight it right beside him. As Marcus got sicker, Brielle started changing even more. She would snap at me for little things like making too much noise in the kitchen or leaving my reading glasses on the coffee table. She would complain that the house smelled like medicine and sick people. She started staying out later and later, saying she was working or meeting friends. One night, about a month before Marcus died, I caught her on the phone in her car in our driveway. I was looking out the window, and I could see her talking very animatedly to someone, laughing and flipping her hair like she was flirting. When she came inside, I asked her who she was talking to. "Just a client," she said quickly. "Work stuff." But something about the way she said it made me suspicious. This wasn't the way someone talks to a client at 10 o'clock at night. The last few weeks of Marcus's life were the hardest thing I've ever been through. He was in so much pain, and the treatments weren't working anymore. The doctors finally told us there was nothing more they could do except try to make him comfortable. Marcus came home for his final days. Brielle set up a hospital bed in the living room so he could look out at the garden he loved so much. I slept on the couch next to him every night, holding his hand when he woke up scared or in pain. "Mom," he said to me one night when Brielle was upstairs, "I need to tell you something important." "What is it, baby?" "I've made arrangements, legal arrangements. I want you to be okay after I'm gone." I didn't want to talk about him dying, so I just squeezed his hand and told him to save his strength. But he kept talking. "I've been watching Brielle lately, the way she treats you, the way she talks about you when you're not around. I'm not stupid, Mom. I see what's happening. Marcus, don't worry about all that right now." "Listen to me," he said, gripping my hand tighter than I thought he had strength for. "When the lawyer reads my will, you need to listen carefully, every single word. Promise me." I promised, but I thought it was just the medication talking. The doctors had him on morphine for the pain, and sometimes it made him say strange things. Marcus died on a Tuesday morning in March. I was holding his hand when he took his last breath, and Brielle was upstairs taking a shower. By the time she came down, it was over. The funeral was 3 days later. Hundreds of people came to pay their respects. Marcus had been loved by so many people, his employees, his clients, his friends from college, neighbors we'd known for years. Everyone talked about what a good man he was, how generous and kind he'd always been. Brielle played the grieving widow perfectly. She wore a black dress and cried at all the right moments. She accepted condolences graciously and thanked everyone for coming. If I didn't know better, I would have thought she was genuinely heartbroken. But I noticed things, like how she kept checking her phone during the service, how she seemed more concerned about the flower arrangements than about the people who were mourning her husband, how she perked up when people started talking about Marcus's business, and how successful it had become. The day after the funeral, Mr. Harrison came to the house to read the will. Brielle her parents and I sat in the living room where Marcus had died just a week earlier. Mr. Harrison opened his briefcase and pulled out a thick document. "This is the last will and testament of Marcus Robert Washington," he began in his lawyer voice. I tried to listen, I really did, but I was still so numb from grief that the words just seemed to float around me without landing. I heard something about the house going to Brielle. I heard something about the business and the bank accounts going to her too. I heard the number $55 million, which seemed impossible, even though I knew Marcus's company was worth a lot of money. Brielle was crying, but through her tears, I could see something that looked almost like relief. Her parents were patting her shoulders and telling her how sorry they were for her loss, but they looked pretty pleased too. When Mr. Harrison finished reading, everyone hugged and said their goodbyes. Brielle's parents left to go back to their hotel, and Mr. Harrison packed up his papers. "Mrs. Washington," he said to me before leaving, "do you have any questions about the will?" I shook my head. What was there to ask? My son was gone, and he'd left everything to his wife. It made sense, even if it hurt to think about living in this house that would now belong to someone who seemed to barely tolerate me. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of Brielle on the phone in the kitchen. She was talking loudly, almost excited. "Yes, I know it's a lot of money," she was saying, "but Marcus is gone now, and I can do whatever I want with it. No, Dorothy won't be a problem. I'm taking care of that situation today." My blood went cold. What did she mean she was taking care of the Dorothy situation? I found out 2 hours later when the doorbell rang and 3 men in uniforms were standing on our porch. "We're here to pack up the belongings for Dorothy Washington," one of them said. "Pack up?" I asked, confused. That's when Brielle appeared behind me, with a satisfied smile on her face. "I hired a moving company to help you relocate," she said sweetly. "I thought it would be easier than having you pack everything yourself." "Relocate? Brielle, what are you talking about?" Her sweet expression disappeared instantly. "I'm talking about you moving out of my house, Dorothy. Today. Marcus is gone, and I don't need you here anymore." I felt like the ground was falling out from under me. "But this is my home. I've lived here for years." "Well, now you don't," she said coldly. "The house belongs to me now. Everything belongs to me. And I want you gone." "Where am I supposed to go?" Brielle shrugged like she couldn't care less. "That's not my problem. Maybe you can find a nice retirement home somewhere. Or a homeless shelter. I really don't care." For the next 4 hours, I watched strangers pack up 30 years of my life into boxes and load them onto a truck. My photo albums, my clothes, my books, my little collection of ceramic angels that Marcus used to buy me. For Christmas every year. Everything that proved I had existed, that I had mattered, was being taken away. Brielle supervised the whole thing like she was enjoying it. She would point to things and say, "That goes," or "She can take that." When I tried to pack some pictures of Marcus from his childhood, she snatched them out of my hands. "Those stay here," she said. "They're pictures of my husband." "He was my son first," I said, trying not to cry in front of the movers. "Well, he's dead now, so it doesn't matter." The cruelty in her voice was like a slap in the face. This woman had sat at my dinner table hundreds of times. I had taught her how to make Marcus's favorite cookies. I had held her hair when she got food poisoning from bad sushi. I had welcomed her into my family with open arms. And now she was throwing me away like I was nothing. By evening, everything was loaded onto the truck. I stood on the sidewalk with 2 suitcases watching my whole life disappear. That's when Brielle came outside and said those words that will haunt me forever. "Don't even think about coming back here, Dorothy. You're not welcome here anymore. Go die in a dumpster for all I care." As the moving truck pulled away and Keisha helped me into her car, I couldn't stop thinking about what Marcus had said in the hospital. Listen carefully to everything the lawyer says. Every single word. What had I missed? What was so important that my dying son had used some of his last breath to tell me about it? I was about to find out, and when I did, everything was going to change. The phone call to Brielle was the most satisfying moment of my life. Mr. Harrison put the call on speaker so I could hear everything, and I'll never forget the sound of her voice going from confident to confused to absolutely panicked in the space of about 30 seconds. "Hello, Mrs. Washington," Mr. Harrison said in his professional lawyer voice. "I hope you're settling into your new living situation well." "Oh, hi, Mr. Harrison," Brielle said, and I could hear the smugness in her voice. "Yes, I'm doing just fine. It's so peaceful here now without all the complications." She was talking about me like I was some kind of pest that had been exterminated. "Well, that's interesting," Mr. Harrison continued, "because I just had a very enlightening conversation with Dorothy. It seems there was some confusion about the terms of your husband's will." There was a pause. "Confusion? What kind of confusion?" "The kind where you apparently didn't listen to the conditions attached to your inheritance." "Conditions? What conditions? Marcus left me everything. You said so yourself." Mr. Harrison looked at me and winked. "Mrs. Washington, I'm going to read you a specific section of your late husband's will. Please listen very carefully." I heard Brielle moving around, probably sitting down somewhere. "Okay, I'm listening." "To my beloved wife Brielle, I leave the family home and all my financial assets, including but not limited to my business interests, bank accounts, and investments, totaling approximately $55 million. However, this inheritance is conditional upon her treating my mother, Dorothy Washington, with the love and respect she deserves, and allowing her to remain in the family home for the duration of her natural life. Should Brielle fail to meet these conditions, or should she at any time ask my mother to leave the home or treat her with anything less than complete kindness and respect, the entire inheritance shall immediately transfer to Dorothy Washington instead." The silence on the other end of the phone lasted so long that I thought maybe the call had been disconnected. "Brielle Mouse, are you still there?" Mr. Harrison asked. That can't be right," she stammered. "You didn't read that part yesterday. You just said the house and money went to me." "I read the entire will yesterday, Mrs. Washington. Every single word of it. Perhaps you weren't paying attention to the conditions." But I already kicked her out. She's gone. I hired movers and everything." "Yes, I'm aware, which means you've violated the terms of the will. The house now belongs to Dorothy, along with all of Marcus's financial assets." I heard what sounded like something crashing to the floor, like maybe Brielle had knocked over a lamp or a picture frame. "No, no, no," she was screaming. "This can't be happening. Marcus wouldn't do this to me. He loved me." "He did love you," Mr. Harrison said calmly. "But he also loved his mother, and he was very specific about his wishes. I can contest this. I can fight it in court." "You certainly can try. But I should mention that Marcus anticipated this possibility. He had the will witnessed by 3 independent parties, and he also made a video recording explaining his reasoning. Would you like me to arrange for you to view that recording? There was another long silence, and then I heard Brielle crying. Not the gentle tears of a grieving widow, but the ugly, desperate crying of someone whose whole world just fell apart. "How much time do I have?" she asked through her sobs. "Time for what?" "To fix this, to make it right with Dorothy." Mr. Harrison looked at me with raised eyebrows, silently asking what I wanted to do. Part of me wanted to tell him to say it was too late, that she'd already shown her true colors, and there was no going back. But another part of me, the part that remembered the sweet girl who used to help me make cornbread and call me Mom Dorothy, made me nod. "The terms of the will don't specify a time limit," Mr. Harrison said. If Dorothy were to move back into the house, and Brielle were to genuinely demonstrate the love and respect that Marcus requested, I suppose the inheritance could revert back to its original distribution. "Thank you," Brielle whispered. "Thank you so much. I'll make this right, I promise." After we hung up, Mr. Harrison turned to me with a serious expression. "Dorothy, I need to ask you something, and I want you to think carefully before you answer. Do you really want to go back to that house, after everything she said to you?" I thought about it for a long moment. The truth was, I missed my home terribly. I missed my garden, my kitchen, my bedroom with the window that looked out over the neighborhood I'd lived in for 30 years. I missed the feeling of being surrounded by memories of Marcus growing up. But more than that, I missed the Brielle I thought I knew, the one who had seemed to genuinely care about me. Maybe, just maybe, this shock would make her remember who she used to be. "I think Marcus put those conditions in his will for a reason," I told Mr. Harrison. "Maybe he saw something in Brielle that could be saved. Maybe he was hoping this would teach her something about what really matters in life. You're a more forgiving woman than most people would be in your situation. My son taught me that holding on to anger only hurts yourself. If Brielle is willing to change, really change, then maybe we can both learn something from this." 2 hours later, Brielle showed up at Keisha's house. I watched through the window as she got out of her car, and I barely recognized her. Her hair was a mess, her makeup was smeared from crying, and she looked like she hadn't slept in days. Keisha answered the door when Brielle knocked, and I could hear their conversation from the living room. "Is Dorothy here? I need to talk to her, please." "I don't know if that's a good idea," Keisha said firmly. "After what you did to her yesterday." I know I messed up, but please, I need to explain. I need to apologize." I walked to the front door and saw Brielle standing there with tears streaming down her face. She looked like a completely different person from the cold, cruel woman who had kicked me out just 24 hours earlier. "Dorothy," she said when she saw me, "I am so sorry. I don't know what came over me. I was grieving and confused, and I took it out on you, and that was wrong, so wrong." Keisha was standing there with her arms crossed, clearly not buying the sudden change of heart. "Where was all this grief yesterday when you were telling Dorothy to die in a dumpster?" Brielle flinched like she'd been slapped. "I said terrible things, unforgivable things. I was angry and scared, and I wasn't thinking straight." What were you angry about? I asked. Your husband had just died. What did you have to be angry about? Brielle looked down at her hands. I was angry at you for being so perfect, for being everything to Marcus that I felt like I could never be. You were his first love, his most important person, and I was jealous of that. I was his mother, Brielle. That's different from being his wife. I know that now. But when he was sick, and you were taking care of him, and he would light up when you came into the room, I felt like I was competing with you for his attention, even at the end. I could see the pain in her eyes, and despite everything she'd done, I felt sorry for her. Grief makes people do crazy things sometimes, and maybe she really had been struggling with feelings she didn't know how to handle. The lawyer told you about the conditions in the will? I asked. She nodded miserably. Marcus was smarter than both of us. He knew this might happen. He knew I might do something stupid and hurtful, and he wanted to protect you. So what do you want from me now? I want you to come home, she said, and her voice broke on the word home. I want to try again. I want to be the daughter-in-law that Marcus hoped I could be, and the daughter-in-law that you deserve. Keisha made a disgusted noise. This is only happening because she found out about the money. If that lawyer hadn't called, Dorothy would still be sleeping on my couch while this woman was living it up in that big house. Brielle nodded. You're absolutely right, and I have to live with that for the rest of my life. But I'm hoping Dorothy will give me a chance to prove that I can be better. I looked at this broken woman standing on Keisha's porch, and I thought about what Marcus would want me to do. He had loved Brielle enough to marry her, and he had loved me enough to protect me. Maybe he was hoping we could find a way to love each other too. Okay, I said finally. I'll come home, but things are going to be different. Different how? We're going to talk honestly with each other. No more fake smiles or pretending everything is fine when it isn't. If you're feeling jealous or angry or left out, you tell me. And if I'm feeling unwelcome or disrespected, I'll tell you. I can do that. And we're going to honor Marcus's memory together, not as competitors, but as two women who loved the same man in different ways. Brielle was crying again, but these tears looked different. They looked real. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for giving me another chance. The moving truck came back the next day to unload all my things. Brielle helped carry boxes, and she kept apologizing for every broken picture frame or dented piece of furniture. I'll replace anything that got damaged, she kept saying, whatever it costs. But the strangest thing was how different the house felt. It was the same building, same rooms, same furniture, but the atmosphere was completely changed. Before, it had felt like Brielle was just tolerating my presence. Now, it felt like she was genuinely trying to make space for me in her life. That first evening back, we sat in the kitchen together while I made dinner. Brielle watched me cook the way she used to when she was first dating Marcus, asking questions about ingredients and techniques. I never learned how to cook from my mother, she said quietly. She was always working, and we ate a lot of takeout and frozen dinners. Marcus used to say your cooking reminded him of being loved. I could teach you, I offered, if you want to learn. I'd like that very much. Over the next few days, we fell into a routine that felt almost normal. Brielle would go to work in the morning, and I would tend to my garden and take care of the house. In the evenings, we would cook together and talk about our days. But I could tell she was struggling with something. She would get quiet sometimes, staring off into space with a worried expression. She was jumpy whenever her phone rang, and she seemed nervous about checking her messages. One evening, about a week after I'd moved back home, I found her crying at the kitchen table, with her laptop open in front of her. "What's wrong?" I asked, sitting down beside her. "It's the business," she said, wiping her eyes. "Marcus's company. I don't know how to run it." I looked at the screen and saw spreadsheets full of numbers that didn't mean anything to me. "What kind of problems are you having?" "Everything kind of problems. The employees are asking questions I don't know how to answer. Clients are threatening to cancel their contracts because they want to deal with someone who understands the technical side of things. I'm losing money every day." "Can't you hire someone to help? A manager or something?" I tried, but everyone wants to buy the company from me. Instead of just helping me run it, they're offering way less than it's worth because they know I'm in over my head. I thought about Marcus and how proud he'd been of the company he'd built from nothing. He'd started TechFlow Solutions in our garage when he was just 22 years old, working 18-hour days and eating ramen noodles for dinner because he was putting every penny back into the business. "What would Marcus want you to do?" I asked. Brielle laughed bitterly. "Marcus would want me to magically become a software engineer overnight, but I can't do that. I'm good at marketing and sales, but I don't understand the technical stuff at all." "Maybe you don't need to understand it. Maybe you just need to find people who do and learn to trust them." "What do you mean?" Marcus didn't start out knowing everything either. He learned by asking questions and surrounding himself with smart people. Maybe instead of trying to do everything yourself, you could focus on the parts you're good at and let other people handle the rest. Brielle looked at me with surprise. "That's actually not a bad idea. There are a few employees who've been with the company for years. They know the technical side better than Marcus did sometimes. So talk to them, ask them what they think should happen next." The next day, Brielle came home from work, looking more hopeful than I'd seen her since Marcus died. "You were right," she said, setting down her purse and kicking off her high heels. "I had a meeting with the senior developers, and they've been wanting to expand into mobile applications for years. Marcus was always too cautious to try it, but they think it could double our revenue." "That sounds exciting." "It is, and scary, but exciting too." She paused and looked at me seriously. "Dorothy, I owe you an apology for more than just kicking you out of the house." "What do you mean?" "I mean, I never appreciated how much you contributed to Marcus's success. You were always there supporting him, encouraging him, helping him think through problems. You were his sounding board for every major decision he ever made." I felt tears prick my eyes. He was such a good son. Even when he got successful and busy, he always made time for his old mom. He talked about you constantly at work. The employees all knew stories about you, about how you worked 2 jobs to put him through college, about how you believed in him when nobody else did. I just did what any mother would do. No, Dorothy, you did what a great mother would do, and I was too jealous and insecure to see that before. That night, as I was getting ready for bed, Brielle knocked on my bedroom door. "Dorothy, can I ask you something?" "Of course." Do you think Marcus would be proud of me for how I'm trying to handle the business and everything else? I thought about my son and the kind of man he'd been. Marcus had always believed people could change and grow if they were willing to do the work. I think Marcus would be proud of you for being brave enough to admit when you're wrong and asking for help when you need it, I told her. Those aren't easy things to do. Brielle smiled, and for the first time since she'd come to pick me up from Keisha's house, it looked like a real smile. Thank you for everything, for coming back, for forgiving me, for helping me see things differently. We're family, Brielle. That's what family does. But even as I said those words, I could see something flickering in her eyes. Something that looked almost like guilt, and I couldn't shake the feeling that there were still secrets between us. Things she wasn't telling me about why she'd been so eager to get me out of the house in the first place. I was about to find out that my instincts were right, and the real betrayal was much worse than anything I'd imagined so far. Things were going so well between Brielle and me that I almost forgot to be suspicious. For 3 weeks, we lived together like a real family. She would ask my advice about business decisions, and I would help her practice her presentations. We cooked dinner together every night, and she even started coming to church with me on Sundays. But there were still little things that bothered me, like how she would get nervous whenever certain people called her phone, or how she would quickly close her laptop when I walked into the room, or how she kept getting packages delivered that she would rush to hide before I could see what they were. The breaking point came on a Thursday afternoon when I was watering my garden, and I heard Brielle talking on the phone in her bedroom with the window open. "I know, baby. I know it's hard," she was saying in a sweet, soft voice I'd never heard her use before. "But I told you I have to play this game for a little while longer, just until I figure out a way around this stupid will." I stopped watering and moved closer to the house, my heart pounding. "No, Trevor, I don't care about her feelings," Brielle continued. "She's just a lonely old woman who doesn't have anywhere else to go. I'm only being nice to her because I have to be." Trevor? Who was Trevor? "The lawyer says as long as she's living here and I'm treating her well, the inheritance stays with me. But he also said there might be ways to challenge the conditions if I can prove Marcus wasn't in his right mind when he made the will." I felt sick to my stomach. She was still trying to get rid of me. All the cooking together, all the heart-to-heart conversations, all the apologies and promises to be better. It was all fake. "I miss you too," she was saying. "God, I can't wait until this is all over and we can be together properly. Maybe we can take that trip to Paris you were talking about. With $55 million, we can go anywhere we want." I backed away from the house, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold the watering can. Brielle had a boyfriend named Trevor, and they were planning to spend Marcus's money together as soon as she figured out how to get me out of the picture permanently. That evening, Brielle acted completely normal. She helped me make dinner, told me about her day at work, and even complimented me on the new flowers I'd planted in the front yard. If I hadn't heard that phone conversation, I never would have suspected she was plotting against me. But now I knew the truth, and I had to decide what to do about it. Part of me wanted to confront her immediately, to throw her lying words back in her face and watch her squirm. But another part of me, the part that had learned to be strategic during my 63 years on this earth, told me to wait and gather more information first. The next morning, after Brielle left for work, I did something I'm not proud of, but felt I had to do. I searched her bedroom. It didn't take long to find what I was looking for. In her bedside table drawer, underneath some magazines and old receipts, I found a stack of letters tied together with a red ribbon. Love letters from Trevor, dated from before Marcus had even gotten sick. My hands were shaking as I read them, but I forced myself to get through every single one. They were disgusting, full of sexual details and romantic promises, but also full of plans. Plans about what Trevor and Brielle would do with Marcus's money after he died. Once your husband is out of the picture, we can finally be together the way we were meant to be, one letter said. $55 million will buy us a pretty nice life, don't you think? Another one was even worse. I can't wait until you don't have to pretend to love him anymore. I know it's hard playing the devoted wife when you'd rather be with me. The oldest letter was dated 8 months ago, right around the time Marcus was diagnosed with cancer. These two had been planning to cash in on my son's death before he was even gone. I sat on Brielle's bed, holding those letters, and I felt something I'd never felt before in my entire life. Pure, burning rage. Not the quick anger you feel when someone cuts you off in traffic or says something rude. This was deeper than that. This was the kind of rage that changes you forever. My son had died believing his wife loved him. He had spent his last weeks worried about taking care of her and me, making sure we would both be okay after he was gone. And all that time, she was counting down the days until she could collect her payoff and run away with her boyfriend. I put the letters back exactly where I found them and spent the rest of the day planning. If Brielle wanted to play games, I could play games too. But I was going to play to win. That evening, I called Mr. Harrison and asked if he could come to the house the next day while Brielle was at work. I need to show you something, I told him, something that might change our understanding of the will. Mr. Harrison arrived at 10 o'clock Saturday morning with his briefcase and a concerned expression. Dorothy, you sounded upset on the phone. What's going on? I handed him the stack of letters. I found these in Brielle's room. I want to know if they affect the legal situation. Mr. Harrison read through the letters, and with each page, his expression got darker and darker. Dorothy, these letters prove that Brielle was having an affair with this Trevor person while Marcus was dying. They also show clear intent to defraud the estate. What does that mean exactly? It means that Brielle entered into the marriage under false pretenses and with the intent to inherit Marcus's wealth illegitimately. This could void the entire will. What would happen then? If the marriage is ruled fraudulent, then Marcus would be considered to have died unmarried, and as his only surviving family member, you would inherit everything automatically. I thought about this carefully. What would I have to do to make that happen? We would need to file a complaint with the court and present this evidence. It would probably take several months to resolve, and it would be very public. Are you prepared for that? Before I could answer, we heard the sound of a car pulling into the driveway. She's not supposed to be home yet, I said, quickly gathering up the letters. Mrs. Washington, Dorothy, where are you? Brielle's voice was calling from the front door. and she sounded panicked. "In the living room," I called back, shoving the letters into Mr. Harrison's briefcase. Brielle rushed into the room, her hair messy and her face flushed like she'd been running. "Dorothy, thank God you're here. I need to tell you something. And I need you to hear it from me before you hear it from someone else." "What are you talking about?" I asked, trying to look innocent. Brielle noticed Mr. Harrison sitting there with his briefcase. "Oh, Mr. Harrison, I didn't know you were here." "Mrs. Washington called me about some estate matters," he said smoothly. Brielle looked back and forth between us, and I could see the wheels turning in her head. She was trying to figure out how much we knew. "Dorothy," she said slowly, "I haven't been completely honest with you." "About what?" "About why I was so eager to get you out of the house after Marcus died. It wasn't just because I was grieving or angry. There was another reason." She sat down in the chair across from us and put her face in her hands. "I've been having an affair," she said quietly, "for almost a year, with a man named Trevor." I pretended to be shocked. "Brielle, no. How could you do that to Marcus?" "I don't know. I don't have any excuse. Marcus was sick and I was scared. And Trevor was there and it just happened." "Is it still happening?" Mr. Harrison asked pointedly. Brielle nodded miserably. "Yes, and when Marcus died, Trevor started pressuring me to choose between him and this life. He said if I really loved him, I would sell everything and move away with him." "So you were trying to get rid of me so you could run away with your boyfriend?" I asked. "Yes, and I'm so sorry. I know how awful that sounds." Mr. Harrison leaned forward. "Mrs. Washington, are you aware that adultery can affect the validity of your inheritance under Georgia law?" Brielle's head snapped up. "What do you mean?" "I mean that if you inherited your husband's estate through fraudulent means, such as by pretending to be a loving wife while actually planning to abscond with a lover, the inheritance can be voided." The color drained from Brielle's face. "But I told Dorothy the truth. That has to count for something." "Actually," I said quietly, "you didn't tell me the whole truth." "What do you mean?" I looked at Mr. Harrison, who nodded and opened his briefcase. He pulled out one of the letters and handed it to Brielle. "We found your correspondence with Trevor," he said. Brielle took the letter and read it, and I watched her face go through about 6 different expressions: surprise, fear, shame, anger, and finally, desperate calculation. "You went through my private things," she said accusingly. "I went through my house," I corrected her. "The house that you've been living in under false pretenses." "Dorothy, please. You have to understand. I was confused and grieving, and I made terrible decisions. But I'm trying to do the right thing now." "The right thing?" I stood up, and all the anger I'd been holding back for weeks came pouring out. "The right thing would have been to love my son while he was alive, instead of planning to steal his money with your boyfriend." "I did love Marcus." "No, you didn't. You loved what he could give you, and when he got sick and couldn't give you the fun, exciting life you wanted anymore, you found someone who could." Brielle started crying, but I wasn't moved by her tears anymore. I'd seen her fake emotions too many times. "Mr. Harrison," I said without taking my eyes off Brielle, "I want to file that complaint we discussed." "Dorothy, wait," Brielle begged. "Please don't do this. I'll do anything. I'll break up with Trevor. I'll never see him again. We can go back to the way things were." The way things were was a lie, I said. Everything you've done for the past month has been a lie. The cooking, the conversations, the apologies, all of it was just an act to keep me happy so you could keep Marcus's money. That's not true. I mean, it started out that way. But then I really did start caring about you. I really did want us to be family. If that was true, you would have told Trevor to leave you alone. You would have stopped taking his calls and receiving his letters. But you didn't, did you? Brielle couldn't meet my eyes. No. Because you were still planning to leave as soon as you figured out how to get around the will. Yes. At least she was finally being honest. Mr. Harrison cleared his throat. Mrs. Washington, Brielle, I should inform you that based on this evidence, it's very likely that a court will void your inheritance entirely. You should probably consult with your own attorney. Brielle looked up at him with desperate eyes. How long do I have? To do what? To figure this out. To find a way to make this right. There is no way to make this right, I said firmly. You betrayed my son in the worst possible way. You let him die thinking you loved him, when really you were just waiting for him to get out of your way. That's not true, Brielle screamed, jumping to her feet. I did love him, maybe not the way I should have, but I did care about him. Then why didn't you take care of him when he was sick? I shot back. Why did you leave that to me while you were off texting your boyfriend? Because I couldn't handle it. Because watching him die was too hard, and I'm not as strong as you are. So you found comfort in another man's arms while your husband was fighting for his life? Brielle crumpled back into her chair, sobbing. I know it was wrong. I know I'm a terrible person, but I can't change what I did. All I can do is try to be better. It's too late for that, I said quietly. Marcus is gone, and nothing you do now will bring him back or undo the pain you caused him. Mr. Harrison packed up his briefcase and stood up. I'll file the paperwork on Monday morning. Mrs. Washington, Dorothy, you should prepare for this to take several months to resolve. And Brielle, you really do need to get your own lawyer. After he left, Brielle and I sat in silence for a long time. Finally, she spoke. What happens now? Now you pack your things and leave my house. Dorothy, please. No. I held up my hand to stop her. I gave you a second chance when I found out about the will. I forgave you for the terrible things you said to me. I welcomed you back and tried to build a relationship with you because I thought that's what Marcus would have wanted. He would have wanted that, but he never would have wanted you to keep lying to me and planning to steal from his estate with your boyfriend. That's not the kind of man my son was. Brielle was quiet for a moment. You're right. Marcus deserved better. He deserved better than me. Yes, he did. She stood up slowly, like an old woman, even though she was only 31. I'll be out by tomorrow night. Take only what belongs to you, nothing that was Marcus's. She nodded and walked toward the stairs, then turned back. For what it's worth, Dorothy, these past few weeks with you really were special to me. Even if they started out fake, they became real. You taught me what it feels like to be part of a real family. Then you should have chosen to stay in this family instead of choosing Trevor. I know. I'm sorry. After she went upstairs, I sat in my living room and looked around at the house that was finally, truly mine. No more conditions, no more walking on eggshells, no more wondering if I was welcome in my own home. But the victory felt hollow somehow. I'd won, But what had I really won? A house full of memories of my dead son, and a pile of money I never really wanted in the first place. The next evening, I watched Brielle load her car with suitcases and boxes. She didn't take much, just her clothes and a few personal items. Everything else in the house had belonged to Marcus or me. As she was putting the last box in her trunk, she came over to where I was standing on the porch. "Dorothy, I want you to know something. What I said that day when I kicked you out, about going to die in a dumpster. That's not how I really felt about you. I was angry and scared, and I said the cruelest thing I could think of. But you never deserved that." "I know," I said quietly, "and I want you to know that Marcus really did love you more than anything in the world. He talked about you all the time, about how proud he was of you, how grateful he was for everything you'd sacrificed for him. Even when I was being terrible, he never stopped defending you." Tears were running down her face, and despite everything, I felt sorry for her. "Take care of yourself, Brielle. I hope you find whatever it is you're looking for." "I hope so too." She got in her car and drove away, and I never saw her again. 3 months later, the court ruled that Brielle's marriage to Marcus had been fraudulent due to her ongoing adultery and intent to defraud the estate. The entire inheritance came to me. The house, the business, all $55 million. I kept the house, of course. It was my home, full of 30 years of memories. But I sold Marcus's business to the employees who had been running it, and I used most of the money to start a foundation in Marcus's name that provides college scholarships for kids whose parents died young. I kept enough money to live comfortably and to make sure I could always take care of myself. But the rest went to helping other families who were struggling the way Marcus and I had struggled when he was growing up. Sometimes I wonder, what would have happened if Brielle had chosen differently? If she had ended things with Trevor and really tried to build a life with me and honor Marcus's memory? Maybe we could have been a real family. Maybe she could have learned to love with her whole heart instead of always looking for the next best thing. But people make their choices, and choices have consequences. Brielle chose money and excitement over love and loyalty. She chose lies over truth, selfishness over family, and in the end, she lost everything that really mattered. I still live in the house where I raised my son, and every morning I sit in my garden and remember all the good times we had together. Marcus would be proud of what I've done with his legacy, turning it into something that helps other people instead of just making me rich. The lawyer was right that day when he asked Brielle if she had listened carefully to the will. But the real lesson wasn't about legal conditions or inheritance laws. It was about the difference between people who love with conditions and people who love without limits. Marcus loved me without limits, and he loved Brielle the same way. He trusted her to take care of me because he believed she was capable of that kind of unconditional love. He was wrong about Brielle, but he was right about love. Real love doesn't keep score. Real love doesn't look for ways to cash out. Real love sticks around even when things get hard. I learned that lesson from my son, and now I try to live it every day. Because at the end of our lives, the only thing that really matters is how well we loved the people who trusted us to love them back. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and feel free to share your story in the comments. Your voice matters.